Good morning.
we
We'll
back in
call
before
the
this?
Oh, they're not one person. They're
August 6th, 2013 County Commission meeting to order. We'll stand for a moment of silent reflection. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Buskerud.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is to review and approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move public comment up. I guess I'd like to do it right after the end of the consent agenda. We've got several folks here who want to visit with us for a minute. And then if there's someone who comes later and wants to visit at the regular time, we would have to make accommodation for that.
Are there any other changes requested?
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. I respectfully request that you remove item number 22 from today's agenda, please.
Item 22 to be removed from the agenda. Any other changes in the agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda as changed.
second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda with the changes, that being moving up the public comment period to just after the consent agenda and the removal of item 22. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda.
Good morning again. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today, I have placed the following items on the consent agenda for your consideration. Approval of the minutes from the July 16th, 2013 meeting. Approval of the vouchers in the amount of $415,182.73. To order the election for organization to be held on October 1st, 2013 for the Greyhound Gulch Road District as submitted by the Auditor's Office. To acknowledge the order of organization and incorporation for the formation of the Duggar Road District as submitted by the Auditor. To acknowledge the order of organization and incorporation for the formation of the Lois Lane Road District as submitted by the Auditor's Office. To acknowledge the annexation to the Redneck Road District as submitted by the Auditor's Office. To schedule a public hearing on August 20th, 2013 for General Fund Supplement SP 13-012 for the juvenile diversion and detention budgets. Number 12, approval of the resolution to discharge county aid liens of deceased persons in the amount of $170,236.50 as submitted by the Auditor's Office. And finally, approval of the request to declare surplus an HP Design Jet 800 plotter for the purposes of trade-in as submitted by the Highway Department.
Does anyone wish any of the items on the consent agenda removed?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't necessarily want one removed, but Karen on the back where you have to attest that, you caught that? Okay, fine, thank you. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Your second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 That was enthusiastic.
We were kind of.
It was a roll call in reverse or something. Okay, as
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. sorry to interrupt that, but I'm just noticing that one of the people that we're discharging a lien for $4,700 is Mr. Daniel J. Tiger.
Yep.
He was the man who shot and killed 2 officers in Rapid City. It's nice that we can do that for him.
So noted. As, according to the motion to amend the agenda, we'll now open it up for public comment. And I think we've talked about the conditions of public comment enough. So those who wish to speak, would you please identify yourself when you come to the podium? And if you hear someone ahead of you that says what you were thinking, possibly you'll change your remarks. But who's first?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Brenda Dagan-Whiting, and I'm just wondering, again, on the ag status land from 40 to 160 acres. On the Department of Equalization's report that was given to you before the motion was made, it said that 3.6% of the ag land in Pennington County would be affected by this change. When asked for the parcel IDs over 160 acres in Pennington County, there were 4,600 parcel IDs of 160 acres or more, and when sorted by eliminating the same name and address, that comes down to 349 entities. So the 466 ag land owners affected by the decision to change from 40 to 160 acres represents 57% of the small ag landowners in Pennington County. So I believe the 3.6% of ag land affected is a bit misleading in that representation. And once again, we respectfully ask you to reconsider this motion and work with us in the future to try and find an equitable solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to item 14, the exit audit report.
Morning.
Morning.
We're finished with our audit. It's at the typist right now. Should be out, I don't know, in the next few weeks to a month, I'm guessing. I just wanted to go over our findings with you. I had just a couple things I wanted to talk to you guys about. First, you should have a couple letters, I think, from our in your packet that I had sent in for Holly. One on Pennington County's letterhead. It's our letter of representation. It gets some things in writing that were discussed over the course of the audit. I need the chair's signature, and I already got Julie's signature on it. But I've got the original here. If you want to sign this. A couple of things I want to talk to you about, I guess, is we got one written finding in the audit report. It's the comment that was in last year as far as the distribution of the motor V monies. The calculation that was done for the last several years for the county side of it included all county road miles, and it should have only been the unorganized road miles. We're repeating the comment again. It was not fixed in 2012. From my understanding, talking to several of the officials, you guys went through and revamped your whole road system. Is why you kind of held off on 2012 and waiting until 2013 to make the correction. It's been fixed for 2013, so I anticipate in 2013 we'll be pulling the comment because the correction has been made. But the 2011, 2012 issues are still there, so that comment will be repeated again in the audit report this year. So the only other thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit was we made a few adjustments to the financial statements. We made some reclassifications in the equity section. If you will look, once the audit report's released, if you guys happen to look at our report and compare it to what was initially presented to you by the auditor's office and was published in the newspaper, you'll see some significant balance changes. It was just some reclassification issues that we've been dealing with ourselves in our office, and it just reclassifies the equity section of the financial and the balance sheet. Nothing real major, nothing real big of a problem. I just wanted to point out the fact that GASB kind of changed some things here in the last couple of years. They're the ones that govern our financial reporting. And we have been working with all the counties across the state, trying to get that cleaned up and get it reported. And we've changed our thought process a little bit in some of that too, is some of the reason for the adjustments. So nothing real major. I just wanted to point that out in case you happen to look at the report and look at the differences between what was published versus that. Other than that, I really don't have anything. It's a clean opinion. The financial statements were fairly presented, and that's good. We took a look at the grants. We take a sample of all your federal monies, and we test them to make sure they're following all the requirements and things that they want, and we didn't have any problems there. So it's a good report. Financial statements were fairly presented. So I want to thank Julie and her staff and everybody else that helped us throughout the process. One good thing, I guess, the audit bill should be a little bit less. I think we put in about 75 to 100 hours less this year than we did last year. Part of that's the grants we tested. I don't think we had to test as many grants this year. I think we knocked some time out of there. And then in relationship to the comment, we had a lot of our background work done on that and the spreadsheets set up, so we didn't have to spend a lot of time on that. So the audit bill should be a little bit less this year. Other than that, I don't really have anything. I just need that rep letter signed, and if you guys don't have any questions, I'll get out of your hair.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion for the chair's signature on the audit statement.
Is there a second? Motion and a second to authorize the signature of the chair. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Bruce, and certainly commend the auditor's office.
Yes.
Next item is item 15, the Rapid City Public Library update. Dr. Vera Cole.
Good morning, Commissioners. Vera Cole from
Morning.
the County Library Liaison. And I'll just give you a brief update on the library. We are, as you know, in the process of hiring a new director for the library, and the application period just closed, and so we had 31 applicants from all across the country, really. The vast majority who actually met the minimum qualifications. And so we're in the process of sorting through those and evaluating them. And as it gets down to the final 3 or 4, we expect that the commissioners would have some input at that point, and we'll have public input as well with a presentation by the candidates and so on. So it'll be kind of an interesting process to find a new person, but it looks like there are quite a few qualified candidates, so that's exciting. You have the second quarter report there before you, and see the statistics. At the top, you can see that the data is reported just for this quarter here, and the total number of Pennington County borrowers, 16.2%. That's those currently holding a card during this quarter. You can see the usage is very similar down below in the next table, based on the proportion of the users in the area. And then the chart, I mean, if you look on the second page there, the use of digital materials continues to be very high and expanding all the time. And each in the table there further down, it subdivides what types of materials are being used. But just in one quarter, you can see nearly 13,000 ebooks were downloaded. So times are changing, and it's a very popular and easy way to use the library.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That it
It is.
it really is.
In terms of the, this section,
Yes.
do these all relate to the other digital use?
The other digital use is all the patrons that are non-Pennington County. So if you look there, the green line, the other means non-Pennington County residents. The dotted green line is Pennington County digital use.
Okay.
So that's what that means. Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It is.
Any other questions or comments?
I just appreciate you being so faithful with this. I want to thank you for your time.
Well, you're welcome. If there's any other data that you need to see, then please let us know, because we're trying to keep this in a good format for you, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item is item 16, a joint use facility proposal with Community Health and PC Community Health and Human Services.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to start that off since I've been kind of working on, well, I'm the liaison to the community health as well as being on the building committee. In 2010, we did a master plan, and one of the things we did was look at space and what our needs were going to be space-wise. And we knew at that time we were already in trouble at Health and Human Services. We've tried some different options. One of them was maybe moving out to Western Dakota and doing a collaborative effort out there. We have looked at one point there was an effort to buy the Sam's building and have all human and health and services organizations move into the Sam's buildings. That stuff just hasn't quite worked out, and we're in really desperate need at the Health and Human Services Office of space. And so in working with community health and our own HHS office, we've kind of come up with a plan that we're going to present to you today. And the first person I would really like to talk about or have talked today is Karen Romy from Health and Human Services, because she works in the office every day. She understands the importance of the connection between the two organizations. And I'd just like to have her come up and visit with us a little bit about that.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, first I'd like to, hopefully I won't bore you, but I think it's important to know a little bit of history to understand where we're at today. And I really consider the Community Health Care Center as kind of the offspring or the child from the county. And I say that because in 1988, when I first started with the Pennington County Health and Human Services, I became quickly aware that with the changing health care, that the county property tax dollars could not support the rising cost of health care needs. At that time, I had inherited a federal grant called the Health Care for the Homeless Grant. That came to me a month after I started my position in a brown box, which was filled with papers and I absolutely knew nothing about. The first instinct was to run from that, but I knew by doing that the detox center at that time would lose 10 beds that were supported by this grant for their homeless bed count. So I stuck in there. I quickly learned after that within a month I was going to have a federal audit, and basically knowing nothing of the program, not having a medical degree behind me, that definitely, again, I wanted to just run from it. What that did was, when the auditors came for that audit, I believe that a strong person can easily show their deficiencies and their weaknesses. And that's immediately what I did with these auditors from Denver, and basically told them exactly where we were at, the program that I inherited. However, we had a wonderful discussion about the needs of Pennington County, an experience that I had just had days before, where we started using the emergency room as our primary care physicians versus going into clinics, because we couldn't find anyone that would actually accept our clients with no pay or no insurance or accepting Medicaid rates. That developed a wonderful relationship, that honesty. It was between, they were the ones that suggested, let's go for a community health care grant. So the first step was in 1989 to bring that before then the Commissioner, Dolores Coughing, and ask her if to help us in assisting making that area a medically underserved designation area. That was the first step that we needed done before we could even apply for a grant. Then in 1990, Governor Mickelson at that time was notified that that designation was actually granted, which basically opened the door for us to apply for a grant. We submitted the grant in May of 1991. A very small group of us, again, not really knowing what we were doing. But we had the wonderful support of Denver and a gal by the name of Jean Kachikawa, who so believed in what we were doing and what our vision was that she basically walked our grant through. And we received that grant the first time, which was really unheard of to receive a federal grant of that magnitude the first time out. We did that in February of 1992. We started the development. We received the funding. We started the development of the Community Health Care Center. The Community Health Center was first housed in the building at 725 North Lacrosse with 2 rooms. One room was for administration, and one room was an exam room. And that's how we started. We've always had this close relationship. At that time, talks began because what made our grant so strong was the fact that we had a strong relationship, the county had a strong relationship and investment in the Community Health Care Center. And that's what made our grant so strong. So the next step was trying to look at the land that we had on that complex and to start building what was going to be a county building. And at that time, it was going to be a county building, which the Office of Pennington County Health and Human Services would move into, and they would share with the Community Health Care Center, thus leaving more room for the city-county, the detox at that time. Those of you who have worked with who is now passed, Freddie Schick, and who was chairman at the time, knew that Freddie had a little bit of a temper. Freddie was kind of a no BS person. At that time, the executive director and Freddie were like oil and water. They did not mix. So as we were going through the stages of trying to develop and showing what you're probably looking at today, which would be a building, which would be, all of us would be housed together, the next thing we knew that Freddie had made the arrangements with Rapid City Regional Hospital to buy the land for $1 and to build the building that is now housed with the residency program and the Community Health Care Center. God bless Freddie for doing that. We've lasted 24 years, 22 years. We would probably still be right here today at this point. We probably would have outgrown everything we would have built at that time. So I guess bless him and his determination, and by gosh, this is going to get done, and I'm tired of talking about it. So, but our relationship from that time has been so very strong. And one of the things sometimes what happens when a relationship is so strong and it goes so smooth and it works so good that we forget about it because it goes along and it goes smooth and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. We've had some bumpy roads, our relationships we've had to work out, but the relationship has always been strong. It's always been good between the Community Health Care Center and the county. The pathway between the Community Health Care Center and our office is continual. Every day, people are going back and forth. Today, and as we moved into that arena, and then the state's attorney, who was the liaison to my office in 1994, who is Commissioner Buskerud, in 1994, 1996, we basically rewrote the statutes of county welfare. In those statutes, we wanted to make our relationship even stronger with Community Health Center. And we put in the statutes a statute which called medical necessity. What that did for the county was to really align and to make this a stronger alliance, that when a person is referred over to the county for assistance for specialty care, also that accompanies that is a letter of medical necessity. So then that process has kind of gone on, and and that has strengthened our relationship. I literally sit in the very same desk that I did 25 and a half years ago when I sat here and I said, we are again at crossroads, and again, healthcare is taking another turn. We don't know what the Affordable Health Care Act will bring, but we do know that it will bring new challenges to the county. We do know that the Community Health Care Center is going to be a focus of the Affordable Health Care Act. We do know that the funding is going to be directed towards that area. We do not know what's in state for us. So it's even more important we're at the same point that we continue that relationship. What probably has changed, however, is that today our child, which we birthed in 1988, is now an adult. And they're working through their leadership, through their board, through their executive directors. They're a very strong organization. We rely on them very heavily. Like we do in life, we like to think that as our children grow up, we can be independent of them, but in reality, the county needs the Community Health Care Center, probably more than the Community Health Care Center needs the county. And that's where we are really at today. They are a strong entity. They have done what we've set out to do. But today we're at a point, again, where that dream and that original goal of that grant that was submitted in 1991, that we would be housed under the same roof and that we would work cooperatively and together for one common goal, now is before us today. And I strongly encourage that we take that next step and we follow that original goal, that mission.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Karen. Karen, could you maybe just kind of quickly summarize some of the ways that not only we offer better care to people who need us, but also how it saves money for the county as well?
In our business, we use the word warm handoff a lot. That's a word that we use. And what that means is that the closer that you can keep people connected, the dots connected, the better utilization of resources that we have and the better outcomes that there are. With the Community Health Care Center, we kind of look at ourselves as point A and B, and that goes backward, that goes vice versa. They're point A, we're point B. They're point A, we're point B. The closer we can keep that alliance, the better we keep people from going to point Z, which point Z is involuntary medical commitments, hospitalizations, catastrophic care, increased cost. We can change the outcomes of individuals, both their lives and their health. The closer we stay aligned, the more differences we can make. In that sense, it also changes lives, but it's also cost savings for the county and a better use of our resources. We are constantly back and forth with each other. Probably more today, we're going between the county to the Community Health Center than vice versa, especially now as we're trying to improve some of the programs that we have in the other departments within the county. We're trying to look at expanding and understanding the use of what medications and the lack of medications do for the other county budgets, as the jail, as involuntary commitments. They have a very strong pharmaceutical program. We have people that come in, and we're going to get them connected to the Community Health Center right away. We may pay for the first month or second month of medications. They take the ball, they run with it, they get them on the pharmaceutical programs. That's a tremendous savings for the county in the long term, not only the immediate, but the long term. We have people that come in and we know that they're in need of health care, and we'll walk them over. So it's, I like to say today, we're probably walking more in their direction. They have a very strong alliance of bringing people over. They're also identifying people that need Medicaid. If we can get people on Medicaid, that saves all of us within the community. There's a payment system for health care costs. It's a definite payment for the savings for the county.
Karen, I appreciate that. Does anyone else have questions or?
At this point.
I'd like to have Tim Trithart, who is the Executive Director of Community Health, just visit with us a little bit about what what we've been talking about and how we could coordinate that. And Holly has some pictures. Tim can go ahead and start, but we can kind of show.
Well, just like Karen had said, that for community health, I mean, we're kind of at that crossroads right now. That obviously with the Affordable Care Act and all of that, we're squeezed for space. We've grown a lot over the last 15, 20 years. We've opened up a number of separate clinics across the town to meet the growing needs, a separate dental clinic, a separate pediatric clinic, and we're crammed for space, and we're looking at how we can expand. We know with the Affordable Care Act that there is a lot more emphasis on primary care, cost avoidance in terms of keeping people out of the emergency room and all of that. And so we have been trying to figure out a way to grow, and a way to grow that can obviously meet our partners' needs as well. And so this is kind of the first blush in terms of what we've been looking at in terms of how we can best do that to meet both the community health needs and I think the county's needs as well. To start with, basically what we ended up with here is right now we're looking to relocate about 3 of our existing clinics into one. And basically that would double our existing space for community health from about 15,000 square feet to about 30,000 square feet. And not only does that give us more room, but it allows us to do it much more efficiently the way we'll be doing it. We've seen a lot of changes in healthcare over the last 15, 20 years. We're sort of strategizing for the future in terms of how we can provide more cost-effective care by obviously grouping them all together. We're going to be able to reduce some of our support needs in terms of I don't have to have 3 lobbies, I don't have to have 3 front desks. We can sort of reduce a lot of those support costs. It also allows us, in terms of how we're designing it, to maximize our use of what's in the business called mid-levels, which is basically nurse practitioners and physician's assistants. You're seeing a lot more of those in healthcare. We're not really designed to be able to do that. And we obviously were designed way before electronic medical records, and so we're obviously looking at how we can do that. So, for our needs, that's where we're kind of moving forward. And we're kind of at that point where we need to move forward. Starting October 1st is when they'll start the health insurance exchanges and trying to get folks signed up for premiums to sign them up for health insurance. State of South Dakota hasn't decided to expand Medicaid, but they obviously are looking at that. We know that with both of those, we know that as soon as we're able to provide people coverage, there'll be more people that will be seeking health care. And we need to make sure that we've got the places for them to go, because if they don't come to see us, then they end up going someplace that's obviously much more expensive. They'll go to the emergency room, and those costs obviously are much, much higher. So if you want to show the next slide there, Holly. The first floor is basically all community health center. The yellow ones are the sort of the shared circulation space. The way the design is sort of set is that there is this shared lobby that kind of opens up so that up on the second floor you can see the entrance, basically, that there's kind of a separate entrance. It's the way it was designed, just so that there's some autonomy, but also some nice flow and some shared spaces. The second floor is where, in the top darker blue there, is where the Pennington County space, and I think you guys all have copies of this, and you can look at it all day if you'd like. And then the yellow is kind of that shared hallway with a shared conference room. The lower area, light blue, is kind of our dental area with a separate waiting room, and then that little green area is kind of my administrative area. and all of our support staff. We do share spaces now. We often use Health and Human Services, the meeting spaces over there, and we try to be respectful of that and to try and maximize that. I can tell you that Harry Christensen is president of our board right now, and he's here today. And I can tell you that our board is very supportive of this and very eager to move forward. They're anxious that we need to be able to move forward, to be able to start pushing dirt around. Last year, we bought the land and put that down, and right now we're kind of waiting to see exactly, how we can move forward in terms of working with the county. I think it's a really strong partnership and an important partnership. Just as a point of fact, the numbers that I always kind of to throw around there is the fact that, if we're not able to see, a patient, an indigent Pennington County resident, they end up going to the emergency room is where they end up going. And we as taxpayers then end up, taking that cost. The average cost of an emergency room visit is between $500 to $600, just to kind of point it. The average cost of a patient coming over to us is about $124. So just to put that in perspective, it's just a much better, obviously cost avoidance to be able to shift patients over to see us, and they end up getting more continuous sort of care. That patient medication program that Karen was talking about, last year we secured about $1.6 million worth of meds, that we're able to provide for the patients. And, those are things that, if we're able to diagnose patients and get them on a psychotropic, we can keep them, from behavioral, health going up, and then they don't end up in Sheriff Tom's, jail because they've had some sort of an outburst. They don't end up in the emergency room in a hospitalization because their diabetes is out of control if we're able to get them connected. And so the nice thing about having those warm handoffs is that it basically eliminates a lot of those obstacles for a lot of the patients that we end up seeing with. It allows us to be able to coordinate a lot better. So I think that our board is very supportive. We're very anxious to go forward, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You said you bought the property. Where is that located?
The property is where the old Berquist Elementary School used to be, if you remember where that is. We bought that from the school district. It is 725 East Philadelphia is the actual address. It's just east of, behind Aber Auto Body. Basically, it's about 4.6 acres back there.
Any other questions?
Okay, I don't know if Harry, this is Harry Christensen, the chairman of the Board for Community Health.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Harry Christensen. I know most of you, we've worked together and stuff before. I was elected chairman of this board, I think about a year ago, and one of my goals was to create a new facility that we can efficiently deliver these services. As you know, I'm involved in numerous businesses and have been doing this my whole life. And so one thing that struck me immediately when I saw this, how inefficient this 3 separate clinic situation had become. We intend to build the clinic under any set of circumstances. We really would like the county to participate with us because we think that there's a synergy there. There's it makes sense to do it that way. But under any circumstances, we will build a clinic and provide the services. We have to. We don't have any choice. Putting the political considerations aside, PACA's here. If we expand Medicare, we have about 45 to 48,000 discrete visits a year in that clinic. Probably one of the busiest clinics in South Dakota. We need to be able to handle those visits. If they don't expand Medicare, if PACA's repealed tomorrow, we will still need to have a new facility to handle what we're currently handling in an efficient, cost-effective manner. So we look forward to working with you. If this doesn't work out, if we can't put this deal together, we will build a clinic under any circumstances. But we think it makes good sense to have these 2 services together. And that's basically where we're coming from on. The other things that we looked at with the collaboration with the school district at WTI couldn't work because there are certain requirements the federal government has with respect to placing easements on land that's utilized for the community health centers, and the school districts weren't willing to participate in that. And I don't blame them. That's their call. So that's why we're at where we're at. That's why we made a decision to buy this land and make a decision to build the clinic because it's absolutely necessary. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you about them. But we do look forward to working with you. We'd like to get this deal done with the county if possible. Thank you.
Questions? I know that, and I had Mike Cool kind of prepare this for me, and I may call on him to help me explain some figures, but in the initial projection of what it will cost us to participate in the building, it is around $2 million. And Justin Yucatel, who is the construction manager for the community health, feels that that's a little bit high because that overall cost of square footage that we're basing that on is based on the fact that in the medical part of the facility, they have different requirements. We're building office space. So ours will have a different cost per square foot, but for now, we're kind of going with just what is projected. We also, I had Mike give me an idea of what it would cost to build onto the existing building. And we lose some efficiencies because we become the only project when we build on like that. The need at Detox of more space would require us to build on the footage that Karen needs for her office. And we wouldn't be able to use what she has now and add just a little more space. Because right now Detox is jammed. We've got to deal with some of that problem. So we really need to use Karen's current space and the Detox space for Detox. So if we build on and we lose the economies of being part of the project with community health, we're going to start approaching $3 million. And so when you look at that, if we want to efficiently use our funding, that's a big consideration. And so today, what I would really like to see is a conversation about how the commission feels about pursuing this. We have been a part of the preliminary that has produced these schematics, those preliminary drawings, and we've got, I think it was 5,000, maybe around 5,000 that we have 5 to 8 that we have participated in so far with an MOU to go ahead with the schematics. But we're at a point where we really need to decide if we are willing to go ahead. So I would certainly open the discussion and any questions that you might have.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Well, $2 million here, $2 million there, and pretty soon you're talking real money. Where are we going to get $2 million?
Well, here's part of the consideration. If we are restricted by our bonding, and I said I saw Julie come in, but I have met with her on that. The restrictions of the bonding would not allow us to pay for the cooperative building because we need to have our own title to the land. So technically, we could use the bonding money that we will not be spending on the new complex to build onto the current location. Problem with that is that it's more expensive, and we have many other building needs that we could use that money for. So we will shrink what we can do with that bonding issue. We do have, and we've been kind of unofficially for many years been holding back money in the building reserves. And we do have funding to pay up to 2 million in that is in building reserves, that we could do that. There's over 4 million in there right now, am I right, KJ? And that has just been kind of held out because we knew at some point we were going to need to do something major. And so we could pay cash, basically.
I don't suppose Harry wants to put the title to this property in our name.
There's a way to do this. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Sometimes I forget, like I used to in the legislature. You used to have to whack me once or twice to shut me up. There is a method to do this, and it would be called condominialization. And you could, under our law, you can take title to divide a building into different portions like you do a condominium for apartments or commercial condominium. And you can structure it so that you keep title to your part of the building and we keep title to ours. I don't think you want to have that federal easement on your property.
Because then it becomes part of our bonding. If we would go out to bond for any reason 10 years from now, that is.
You don't want
part of
that
it.
federal easement on your property, and so we have to have it if we use the community health funds. They passed that law. It was part of PACA, which nobody knew, again, of course. And it requires an easement be placed on any community health center property where they receive the money. Now, over in Sioux Falls, the school district there said, fine, put it on there. We have no other use for it. But it's a call that a local government makes, and they make their own call. But this method of creating a condominium, commercial condominium, avoids that problem for you. You keep title to your property. We have title to ours. So it can work that way.
And that's been my preference, is for us to own our piece of it. If we're going to build it, I think we should own it.
What would be the alternative to that? Us just joint ownership in the building, or lease, or?
Well, the alternative would be that we could have a joint. I mean, there's no reason why we can't have a joint title on property, and I'm assuming I'd have to. Your attorneys will have to advise you as if the county can participate in that type of ownership scheme. But then again, you would have that easement against it. Again, this is pretty much a single-use building. It's not something that it's going to have commercial viability in 30 years because of the way it's designed. Most hospital clinics medical facilities are single-use like that. But that's a philosophical call that you as a commission will have to make on whether or not you want to accept that easement or not. And we're flexible. We don't care. We've got the easement no matter what we do. Even if we lease property and do improvements on the property, the federal government will put an easement on that property once we accept, and the owner then has to accept that, or else we can't enter into the lease. That complicated things significantly. So.
Mr. Chair, Jay, may I ask you, we had joint ownership issues when we went to add on to the parking garage and so on. Do you feel like doing a joint ownership, partial, how percentage ownership, I think would be a better way to put it. It was a problem for us when we went to bond.
Yeah, that's the key right there. My understanding is the joint ownership couldn't remain in place if we were going to use bond dollars. Meaning the county had to solely own the dirt and the structure in order to use bond dollars on it. And in fact, in that scenario with our campus expansion, includes all the buildings and the parking ramp, when those when the bonds are paid off 25, 30 years from now, whatever there is, the rule, we will have to re-deed that property and joint ownership back with Rapid City and Pennington County.
Yeah.
But right now, it's solely owned by the county because the bonding requirement that it be that way.
Yeah.
As far as this, where you're talking about not using bonding dollars, I'm not sure that there's an impediment to having a joint ownership. Something I could look into, but if you're using some of the millions in reserves you're talking about, I'm not sure that there'd be a reason why we couldn't have a joint ownership. But the condominium project is interesting to me, and that may well be, I think it's been used. That may well be the route to go if you were to decide to go this way at all.
Well, I believe we kind of looked at some similar kinds of projects in Sioux Falls, and it was a condominium kind of, or it wasn't? What was it?
Mr. Chairman? The deal in Sioux Falls is significantly different because the city owned the property initially, and then the school district owned it. So what they were dealing with were joint powers agreements on the use of the property. And I believe that was the situation there, at least when I looked at the joint powers agreement that was given to us at the meeting.
I'm thinking we looked at something a little different than that, Harry, from a different entity, but I'm not
Okay,
positive.
yeah, I just saw
Yeah, okay.
the document that was provided at the facilities meeting that we went to about a month ago or 3 weeks,
Okay.
whatever it was. And that was a joint powers agreement. I think these are details that we can really work out. They're in the big picture, they're not significant because we can accommodate your need for title, our need for title. We're gonna have about $6 million in the deal. You're gonna have roughly 2, maybe a little more, not more, maybe a little less. So we can work through that. I think the operation of the building would be easy to do with a joint agreement as to maintenance, all those type of things, based on square footage. I mean, that's generally the way we do it in the commercial market. So these are kind of details we can really work through. The question philosophically comes whether or not you want to participate or not in it, because I think the other stuff is housekeeping, basically, that we can work through.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just my philosophy about it is I think that's probably something we need to do, but I guess the proof's in the pudding about how we do it. And I just have some questions about the building plans or the pictures that we were presented here. And it looks to me like we either got a very tall 2-story building or we got a 3-story building. And I'm wondering, when we're dealing with the clientele that we're dealing with, the older folks, the people that need to come and utilize that building, whether, would you run that back, Holly, that whether we need a 3-story up building, or did anybody look at building a building on one level? Because we have 4.6 acres. I'm just wondering, I presume there's elevators in it, but I didn't see any in the plan, but you're looking at $250,000 a piece just to put elevators in the thing.
Mr. Chairman?
So that's what I'm wondering.
This is a preliminary sketch. Obviously, it'd be cheaper for us to build it on 1 story, but because of the parking requirements and the way the lot is laid out with drainage and that, it made more sense to go up to the 2nd story. Now, there's one thing that we needed as a community clinic to think about is future expansion of our treatment rooms. And this provides for that in the best way we can. The concept behind the building is not build something that meets our needs today, which this will do. But as those needs expand, which we anticipate they're going to, I don't like it, you don't like it, but it's a fact of life. We needed to have the ability to expand that rather than go through the process of, oh God, now we need a bigger facility. Hopefully we won't have to do that. Now, it is more expensive to go up that 2nd story, and there is 1 elevator in there. And like you said, it's very expensive to put another one in. But this is preliminary. I mean, this is not set in stone. There are some design features there that may appear to be a little bit much. But this is a preliminary drawing that we're having. And obviously, as we go forward, everything we would do would be through your facilities committee on the way the design to meet their needs would be doing. We're not coming to you and say, this way we're going to build it and walk out of here. Obviously, it doesn't work that way, so.
And
But
Ken,
we understand what you're saying, Commissioner, and believe me, we're going to squeeze every bit of cost out of this that we possibly can.
one good thing working.
Yeah.
Ken, one thing that was really, really important, and I sat through the interviews with the architects and so on, is that they want it to be a nice-looking building, but they want it to be a building that does not overwhelm clients, that doesn't make them feel like they can't enter. And so I know that that is still the goal. This was kind of an original thought, but certainly in visiting through those meetings, I think there'll probably be some changes. And it's just important that the clientele be able to feel comfortable going in there and go up and down between the two floors.
And the one thing too is we intend to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money because we're all taxpayers. And we have we're not going to have anything ostentatious. It's going to preserve the dignity of the people that use it, but it's not going to be something that's going to be, over the top or anything like that. It's going to be a public use facility type design. So, and this design is preliminary. It looks nice. I mean, there are obviously some things that need to be changed in it, and we fully intend to do that. And we'll do that in participation. So, we needed something on paper. We needed to start talking. That's what we have here. So.
Mr. Chair, I just, over the years of the buildings and things that I've been involved in and around here, that especially when you hire an architect, they all want to make it a Taj Mahal to put their name on the bottom stone. Said, look at there what I did. Well, they're looking there what I did with taxpayers' money. So.
What kind of motion are you looking for?
I'm looking for a motion to proceed in an agreement to participate in the building. And we will, that either way, we can deal with the funding.
Mr. Chair. KJ, do you know about the $4 million that's in the building reserve, and can that be used for this? And does anybody else have designs on that $4 million for anything else that we don't know about yet? And
Not that I'm aware of. I think the one important thing to remind the board of that got you to a little over $4 million at the close of 2012 was during the process of purchasing the block that we're now working on, there was close to $2 million that was spent out of the accumulated building, buying those various lots. And then the bonding came through in December 2010, and we ultimately submitted reimbursement to the bonds for the purchase of the $2 million that we spent on the land out of the accumulated building. And I then came to the board, explained that to you sometime last year, and the $2 million came back into the accumulated building. So
so will that make a total of 6 or just a total of 4?
That
Bring
makes
it
a
back to
total
the
of
4. Okay.
that makes a total of 4.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Heine, you got a building plan? And if so, how much and where at, and where's the money gonna come from?
Well, it's been talked about, I guess, to replace that facility because of the age and the mold and issues we have out there. And I, just a preliminary estimate, I was looking at about $5 million to replace that. And I was waiting for your complex and everything to get done up here to see what bonding money you had left over, because I know, I think that bonding money can be used for that facility.
Can be.
So
And that,
that's
and that really has,
patiently waiting.
I know, because we have so many things going on. But that really is a priority, and it's what we've been talking about in the building committee, is going to his building next, because
The only thing that I'm concerned about, and I shouldn't say the only thing, but one good thing that I'm concerned about is you saw it in the paper this last weekend, one of the counties in this state's about to go bankrupt. And let's not let it be Pennington County.
oh, I agree with you totally.
I'll second it. You're gonna make a motion?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that Pennington County proceed with an agreement to participate in a building project with Community Health, and that I can't do the funding with this, so I'm just gonna,
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one, we will actually have another vote on the agreement once it's drafted,
Yes.
I take it?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, also how much money it's gonna cost in the end when they come down to the final figure. We'll have something to do with that.
Just a side comment, Ken. I have been very adamant, no more than 2 million and much less is preferred. I mean, I just don't, they've heard that for a while.
Okay, just a question in my mind. Organizationally, is this going to be part of the overall building committee focus in the county or not?
As far as overseeing what happens, or?
You know, we've sort of thrown a blanket over the building needs with this building committee. And it strikes me that in order to keep things in perspective, it would be well to blend this into that somehow, not to impede anything, but to coordinate.
Yes. You know, we've discussed over and over in that committee how to proceed. I mean, we've been really careful to plan, I mean, Mike, you can say no to what I'm saying, but I believe that we're very capable of keeping that under our watchful eye.
Certainly, I mean, with the money, trying to meet as many of the county needs, and this being one of them, I think it makes a lot of sense for it to continue to be underneath the building committee's oversight as far as the progress and what goes into the building, to keep a handle on what that overall, our budgets for different county projects. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And you are Mike Cool, right?
That's correct. Mike Cool with Buildings and Grounds.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair. For the public's knowledge, with this vote that's just coming up, are we tying them to a $2.2 million expenditure?
No.
Okay, as long as everybody agrees with that. All right.
Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks,
Next.
everybody.
Next item is executive session. Do we have a motion?
That was in case we wanted to discuss any kind of contract, but
Oh.
I think, aren't we at the point where we'll just have
So,
Jay work with?
In order to
Legal and-
dispose of that item,
I think
what do we
can-
do?
I'd make a motion to dispose of that item.
Second.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 18, letter to the clerk of courts from the auditor.
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chair, to allow the auditor to write the letter proposed to the clerk of courts.
What's that?
Judge Davis is on his way too.
Okay, we'll have a debate between the auditor and the judge.
What about my motion, Mr. Chair?
Well, I didn't hear a second, but
Well, we didn't,
I want to wait and hear.
you do, okay.
Okay.
dies for lack of a second. Julie, you are,
Poor Julie, she's going, 1 second, what am I doing? You want me? Yeah.
we had a motion that did not receive a second that would have precluded any commentary by just authorizing this signature. But we wanted to hear what you had to say about it.
What was the motion again? That,
Well, it was
To
to
sign it or
authorize the
not?
signature on this letter, but it died for lack of a second
okay, who made that motion?
because you were on your way.
Oh, okay. I can summarize it up. I've sent you a letter, also a sample letter, which the board can
write up anything. We are asking your assistance to my office because I thought you would carry more weight. If the board doesn't do it, I will go ahead and do it on my own also, or on my own. We're dealing with a new statewide financial system in the state court systems. And when they decided to buy or program this, their court-ordered liens that they probably order court-appointed or public defender liens to be paid through the courts, I would say 85 to 95%. If you go sit up in court, they order those attorney's fees that we pay up front paid through the courts. And this has gone on for quite some time, and the usage of the court-ordered fee has just increased with time. So we get very good assistance from the courts in that, and the judges in that avenue. But with the onset or the implementation of their new court financial system, when they report those court-ordered liens paid to us, we get the name and the docket number. What they have failing to give us now, which is our second criteria for locating a lien, we are not getting them in with a birth date, and we're not getting them in alphabetical order. Both information, the date of birth they already have on file, and a computer can put a report in alphabetical order for a report is very simple. So what we're requesting is that if we lose the birth date on the court-ordered liens, our lien system more or less loses its integrity. We cannot certify to the board, and then you therefore have to have Holly's time and Jay's time involved in researching a lien to determine whose it is. We get misspellings of last names, both from the courts, both from the client when they go through Health and Human Services. So we oftentimes have a economic assistant lien as well as a court-appointed attorney lien. We can't match those up because we can no longer use Social Security numbers. We weren't getting those from the courts anyway. So the second criteria that we use to link those accounts together is the date of birth and the name. The names do not come down to us with any consistency. If we get a name of John Doe without a birth date and a John R. Doe without a birth date, we can't combine them because we don't know if or not they're the same person. So we file two liens, added time, added space. Maybe not seem a big deal. In even 5 months, 5 years, 10 years, John Doe has now become a successful member of society and is going to go buy a house. This is when you become involved, because the title companies pick up anything that they think is even close to John Doe or John R. Doe, or they may even pick up a John P. Doe if there's no birth dates to eliminate them. And then those have to come to you. They involve our research time, Holly's research time, Jay's research time, and your agenda time to determine, and it's a guess, on whether they're all one lien or not. And this doesn't even have anything to do when we start associating liens with another name. So without that birth date, we can't apply it properly, which means we have credit balances out there because we've had to create an account because we can't give it to one John Doe over the other without a birth date. We lose the integrity that we have spent years reestablishing in this lien file. It's a huge debt that is owed to Pennington County for these people that we are required to help, and they are told they need to pay back. So without the birth date and without it in an alphabetical order, which leaves us the research ability if we get it paid by date, whenever we need to research a lien, we have to go through all the reports and check them because they're now sent by date. And so we're requesting, what I'm requesting is if we don't have a birth date, they say, well, you can come up and look at the files. That's going to take our office between 2 and 5 days more a month. And that's a low estimate of staff time that it's going to take to go up and research each file to pick up the birth date. Liens already take us 4 days a week just in my office. And when we send lists to the not the credit unions, to the Credit Collections Bureau, which does your lien collections for you, they too run into the same problem. They then will start taking the philosophy of the title company because they don't have any other choice. We've given them our liens to collect. They'll contact John Doe on all the liens because, again, they don't know who they are. So it's almost a required piece of information that they already have in their files. And we're just simply asking them to continue to reprogram, to give us that, and to give us per submission period. They turn their money over monthly in an alphabetical order. So when anybody wants to come in and look at that list, it makes some sense to them. That's what we're requesting. The support of the board also. We just think it'll carry a lot more weight. And this is affecting every county auditor across the state. Now, maybe other people don't take care of their liens as well as we do, and maybe they don't care. The majority of the county auditors are ending up doing the work. So it's not just unique to Pennington County. This happened across the state. So, and there's a few other irregularities that we're hoping we can work out with this program, and they did this all without asking a county commission, or a county auditor, or a county register of deeds what we think and what we need. And it's not done locally. Our local judges are very supportive of what we need in our office. They just can't make the change. So we've submitted a request to you we were told in our conversations with the State Unified Judicial System that we need to make the request to Renee Truman, who is the clerk of Pennington County Court's 7th Circuit, which we deal with. We need to make a request to her personally, or officially, I guess, that she impress upon their IT staff the urgency of this request and to make those 2 changes for us at this time. And we most certainly realize that you carry a lot more weight with the state system than auditors do.
I wouldn't bet on that at all.
Yeah. So we just think if we send them both, we'll get.
For the chairman's signature on the letter supporting their.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Judge Davis, anything you want to say?
I think we've got a simple solution.
Boy, that'd be nice.
That would be nice.
It would be. I didn't know this was on the agenda today until I saw it at the end of the week. What had happened was that Julie fired one across my bow on the 15th of July. So I put her in touch with our state IT staff, John Kaiser. Karen actually had the first question come up on working this, and we used to have the information available.
Yes.
So as things went on, we're trying to negotiate. Frankly, Auditor Pearson, when it hampered negotiations when you said, I can't believe the state wrote this new program without tracking the date of birth. Because it tracks it, but it doesn't produce it.
Yeah.
They didn't ask the auditors, register deeds, treasurers. They didn't ask the judges or the clerk of courts when this odyssey came into being. I can tell you a whole host of issues that are out there. So on the backside, I've been trying to work with it and get this problem solved because I know the problem Julie talks about. I would encourage you to sign the letter, and instead of wasting time to mail it to Renee, she takes it to Christie, it comes to me. If you get it signed, tell me, I'll come pick it up, and we'll get it fired up to peer and see if we can solve it. Julie's right, the smaller counties don't have as huge an issue as we do here in Minnehaha County. There is a workaround that I know that Kaiser emailed you guys in the interim until we can get it fixed. Odyssey is a nationwide company that
like so many pre-programmed programs are, once you buy it, they say, oh, no, it doesn't work that way. So there's lots of little glitches that we're trying to get worked out. This is one of them, and I'm willing to work through it with you.
Yes, and I must reiterate, we have had nothing but total cooperation from the local judges and the presiding judge. And I thought I'd emailed you a copy of that, Jeff. I apologize if I didn't.
Okay,
But I
thank
think I
you.
did.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 19, from the sheriff.
Morning, Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff. What I have before you is a request for a motion to approve the title and the grade, and then also to place the current teachers on the appropriate place on the pay scale at the Juvenile Services Center. We ran this through the Compensation Committee, worked with the auditor's office. It's just to, I guess, clean up, if you will. The teachers currently are not on the pay scale. They were handled a little bit different because they have a different work year and everything else that corresponds like with the school district work year. So they were a little different animal when it come to county government. So we have a teacher 1 as a grade 12 and a teacher 2 as a grade 13, and tried to, again, mirror the school district to at least some degree in terms of the job description and the grading and whatnot. So I think it's largely cleanup for something that probably should have been on the county books before, and this will actually place them on the scale.
Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve teacher 1, teacher 2 job titles and job descriptions.
I need the, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I need the title, the grade, and then also to place the current employees on the appropriate scale, because they're not on the scale now, so they'll move just a little bit from where they are to get them into one of the steps on the scale.
That was the second part of my motion.
Oh, okay.
You okay, Karen? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items from the Highway Department.
Good morning, Heine Junge, Pennington County Highway Superintendent. First item I have is a joint powers and maintenance agreement for project PH 0041 Prinz 148 PCN 049T. Involves Norris Peak Road and Nemo Road. Back when Safety Lou was passed in 2005, they had a high-risk rural roads program that was targeted towards local roads, county roads, and the criteria was there had to be like 7 or 8 accidents per location to qualify. Well, most of the rural states and rural counties didn't qualify, so they changed the criteria down to 3 accidents within a certain area. And last year we did a safety audit on Nemo Road and Norris Peak Road, and we found that there was some narrow shoulders, some sharp curves, and 3 accidents in a few locations on those roads. So we qualified under the high-risk rural roads program to install and upgrade guardrail, additional signing, delineation, possibly widen out a couple curves, and install 4-inch grooved-in epoxy paint and edge lines on Nemo Road where we're having some motorcycle accidents and vehicle accidents. So total cost of the project is $1,462,055.04. County's responsible for a 10% match of those funds, which would amount estimated at $146,205.54. And we're asking for Commissioner's approval and Chairman's signature on the attached financial and maintenance agreement.
Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the State of South Dakota Joint Powers Financial and Maintenance Agreement between the Department of Transportation and Pennington County and authorize the chairperson's signature.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, the only thing I'll say is that we had quite a room full of people here earlier today, and they all seemed to get up and leave at the most opportune time, just as we were spending $2.2 million of the taxpayers' money. Now we've added another $1.4 million onto the front of it, and there isn't anybody here. They really don't care. All they're worrying about is taxes.
Any other comments?
Oh, I think this is an absolute necessity, Mr. Chairman. You read in the paper, usually a motorcycle accident on those roads just about once a week. So
How about every day? Now,
maybe.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is a modification number 12 to our cooperative road agreement with the Forest Service. Basically our agreement a year ago expired on repairing and replacing some cattle guards on their county maintained roads, but the livestock guards are, the benefactor is a Forest Service and their leasees of the land. And this agreement allows us to repair and replace some auto gates, one on Gillette Prairie, two on Gillette Prairie, repair South Rockville Road, and replace damaged grates and have a new installation on Twin Springs Road. What they're gonna do on Twin Springs, it's up on the old Hill City Road, and they've changed their allotment boundaries, and we're gonna move it back down on Twin Springs Road up closer to the 1880 train crossing, and we're going to, when we do this, we're going to mill and grind up some of the asphalt and reprofile the road and get a better crossing, so we're not bouncing over those railroad tracks. So this agreement basically allows the federal government to reimburse, or the Forest Service to reimburse us for work we're doing on their auto gates. So we would ask for your approval and chairperson's signature.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think we need a motion to approve the modification number 12 to the cooperative road agreement 09-R0 or RO-11020300-019 with the Black Hills National Forest and authorized chairperson signature.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Commend you for reading that accurately and quickly.
And even got the O in place of the zero, huh?
Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 21.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Witcher, Public Defender. I have a pending motion in front of you for the position, a request to approve a reclassification of an employee outside of the wage policy. Nick Strout and I met since our last meeting before the Commissioners, and Nick had provided a letter to the board as well as the, I guess, a breakdown of the various step grades between where the current employee is and the proposed, as well as a document that illustrates sort of the, as best that we can, comparing apples to apples. It's not perfect, but that's the best that we could come up with for other similarly situated employees within the county. Having reviewed those documents, considered the circumstances behind this particular, how many people that this person would be responsible for, as well as the only thing, there'd also be some limited responsibilities with respect to the attorneys too, as to business practices as well. So direct supervisory over 5, soon to be 6 employees, and then limited supervisory authority over the attorneys as well, as far as basic business practices, billing, those sort of things. So I would continue to recommend, I think you guys all know my position on this, the 18 LB as I originally proposed. I think that there's, based upon the documentation, a grade of somewhere around 18 KB, and lower would also be a reasonable amount for considering the substantial increases in responsibilities I'm requesting for this employee. So I would ask for a motion to approve whatever you all think is appropriate.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Ake.
Sure.
You know, sometimes when you take an action like that, what you really do is kind of penalize the employee later on because they come to a maximum for their particular kind of job, and then the only way that they can get a raise is if we grant a cost of living. They can't qualify for merits. And I wondered if you'd considered that.
As I understand, I'm not entirely familiar with the wage policies for Pennington County. As I understand it, you can get a merit increase after the first 6 months of being involved or being in a certain position. After that, are merit increases, do they time out at the end of the R scale or whatever it is?
Well, and really talking, Heine was just here. He has several employees who have been long-time employees in our county, and they have reached the maximum of what they can do, and there's really no other place for them to go on the scale. So even if you as a supervisor thought they should get a merit, they can't. Aren't I right in that? Yeah. And so, yeah. And
Once you get your R, all you get is bonus.
yeah. So there, I mean, you're pushing this employee. I mean, certainly, I'm concerned about the amount of money that we would be paying them when I compare it to the others who are in similar classifications. But that also is something I was thinking about, is that you're going to push that person way up there, and I mean, in essence, if they get the money now, they're not getting it later. I mean, seriously, it's a concern that you're putting her in that position.
Okay, I certainly appreciate those concerns. What I was, when I had originally looked at what that individual is making now and to the added responsibilities and expectations that I'm going to have on them, to me, that seemed like a fair amount if I'm going to ask somebody to take this many more responsibilities, duties, et cetera, that amount should be an appropriate level. I certainly understand the commissioner's concern as from an L to an R, there's not a whole lot of letters left. At the same time, I'm concerned about not paying them what I think is a fair amount based upon their duties and responsibilities that I'm going to be asking of them immediately. So I certainly appreciate the comments.
Any other questions or comments?
So, Mr. Chair, the elephant in the room is, if we grant this request, we're going to have some other requests come in, because it would only be fair to look at those other folks who have been here longer, in that position longer, and supervise more people.
And if I may, I know part of this chart was designed to assist the Board of County Commissioners to decide what they believe is the most appropriate number. And if there's a different number that you would like, I would ask that you make a motion to approve that today so that I can then take it back and see if the employee will accept it.
Mr. Chairman, did I miss something here? Why are we talking about R? Do we go back to something different?
No, that's where they would no longer qualify for a merit raise. They could only get cost of living.
But currently, it's a 16 LB and you want to go to an 18 LB. Are we still on that?
Yeah.
I want to make a motion to put it up to 18J, which is sort of
In between.
halfway in the middle.
Is there a second?
What?
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Here, that's above what he wants.
No, what's this?
Okay.
That's I.
Yep.
I don't know, I just, looking at the yearly salary, it kind of fits in, and the date of hire, I don't know, sort of in the middle of those two. That would be the reason.
Do you have any comments?
I appreciate the motion, I appreciate the comments, Commissioner. I will, accept whatever motion that the board, I believe that's, it's a little less than $2,000 on an annual basis for this particular employee for asking, I think, to me, that's low, but at the same time, it's your decision, so.
Eric, I'm just going to respond. I mean, it's hard to not give really good raises to people, but in reality, it's pretty fair. When you look at our scale, that is a pretty fair middle of the ground, and I mean, there are probably people who would love to have that.
I certainly appreciate
salary.
that.
So,
Looks to me like it's a compromise, and I guess one of the things that enters my mind is that, okay, you've been doing a job for so long or a certain way, and then you get to be identified as a supervisor, and then you find out you don't like to be a supervisor, or you're not good at it. So I think this might be a prudent move.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now you don't have to come back for a meeting or two.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd make a motion, we take a 10-minute break.
Is there a second?
Okay.
We do have a second. You lucked out on that one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Order. And the next item on the agenda is the first reading and public hearing on the amendment to the Pennington County Public Nuisance Ordinance 106.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I guess this is I put this on the agenda. I don't think we're ready for the first reading of an amendment to the public nuisance ordinance, but I kind of wanted to discuss it a little bit, and if it looks like there's not a majority of the commission that is in favor of it, there's no sense in having Jay and the state's attorney continue working just to have it turned down at the first reading next meeting. So I guess my thought is that looks like the state legislature is not going to do anything, and currently the city council is not going to do anything. So I thought it was time for maybe us to address the texting while driving situation. I just cannot see common sense wise how anyone can say that that's not a threat and endangering the safety of other drivers. It definitely is. I know the argument comes back that, well, enforcement is hard. Hey, and it's the same as the seatbelt law. Enforcement is difficult, but not impossible. And I don't think that's a good enough reason to throw it away just because enforcement is difficult. It is difficult. A lot of ordinances and laws, statutes we have are difficult to enforce, but I believe it's time we do something. Also, as part of, if you read my memo, also, if you read through the public nuisance ordinance that we have, there's some corrections that really need to be made. It is, some of the issues that are public nuisances are enumerated, and then the next section says, well, if it's ag land, then these aren't public nuisances. And I understand a lot of them, such as manure, stockpiling, et cetera. I don't quite understand adult bookstores, why that would be legal on agricultural land. So I think we need to do some amending on some of those. But the major thing would be a violation of the public nuisance if someone is texting while driving a motor vehicle. I had at first in control of a motor vehicle, but you do want them to pull off to the side of the road if they feel they have to text, and they would still be in control. So I think we have to make sure it just says while the vehicle is moving. And I've had the state's attorney do some checking on it, and his opinion, I suspect, is going to be a little bit different than mine is, but that's where I'm at, and I would like him to continue working on a proposed language of an amendment to our public nuisance ordinance.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm in total agreement with Commissioner Busker. The legislature is shirking their responsibility, and I think the city council and the mayor are shirking their responsibility when it comes to public safety. I think it's something that needs to be looked at, and I think something that needs to be done. I mean, if they call somebody that realizes that they're going out on a party tonight, and I'm going to have a few drinks, and I've got my car parked behind the bar, and after I had my few drinks and I crawl into the back seat and go to sleep, they can come over and arrest me because I'm in control of the vehicle and I have the key to the vehicle in my pocket, and I can get up and drive away anytime I want to. I think that somewhere in this mix, we ought to be able to put some kind of a law about texting while driving. And sometimes I'm not too sure that a drunk driver is not safer than the person that's running that telephone in their lap. So, but I'm with Commissioner Busker. If some way legally we can do this, I'm more than happy to go along with it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
what are there any other options? What other options might we have, or is this the only way we can do it?
I wish I could tell you that there are other options. The city municipalities have the authority to make traffic laws. Counties do not have that authority. And so about the only thing I could find was public nuisance laws that we can enact.
So just because I don't understand it, I need your help. So if we would do this, and then if I understand, and I'm looking for clarification, that one of the deputy sheriffs stopped someone for speeding, and they realized they were texting as well. So they would give him a ticket for the speeding, and then can they give him a ticket for this, or how does that work?
I would guess if they have sufficient reason to give them a ticket for it, sure they can.
Okay, so it could be on that ticket.
Yeah.
All right.
And, if the officer notes the time, which he should on the ticket, you can, and the person wants to fight it, you can go back and get the records and determine whether they were texting at that specific time or not. So you can prove it, other than just word.
I just wasn't
officer.
clear
Both
how.
of, yes.
Yeah, okay. But it would be pretty hard to stop them if it was for anything else.
I would guess it would be, yeah.
George is out there telling them.
It's,
I get that. I mean,
it's
it's
sort
a
of like,
catch-22.
it's sort of like seatbelts. You know, Sioux Falls has had it for a while and have given out like 19 warnings. So I am assuming that that's what we would do here in the county is do some warnings.
Okay.
And that's, you know, about where it would stop.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would make a motion to ask the State Attorney's Office to research this a little bit to see what our options might be.
Well, before we look at the motion, could we hear what Jay's research is, please?
I was hoping he could get a little more research before he makes a decision.
I don't think he's making a decision, but I just like to hear what he has to say.
I did do a little bit of research on the topic in general. I have Sioux Falls, City of Sioux Falls is the first city that I'm aware of almost a year ago, end of September last year, they passed an ordinance. And this is off the city's website. Which is
You need one?
Since Sioux Falls did this, I think this is an accurate current count. Mitchell, Watertown, Brookings, Vermilion, and Huron have followed suit. I've not looked at all of their individual ordinances, but I have a feeling they're probably pretty close to what Sioux Falls did because I think everybody followed what Sioux Falls did. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the, I was trying to think, what's the analogy here? It's very close to like the fireworks issue. The cities under, you know, I mean, I've come to this conclusion after all these years of doing this. Obviously, where all the population is, where most of the representation is, over the years, and I mean literally 100 years, most of the laws on the books have been put on the books with cities, municipalities in mind. Counties are kind of secondary, if you will. Rural, not as much population, not as much going on. So if you remember from our, I don't think that's necessarily true. Population, of course, yes, but their counties have just as many issues and concerns that they need to be worried about and regulate and so forth today as more than maybe 100 years ago. But the fireworks is a good example because, as you remember, in code, municipalities are given carte blanche, extremely broad regulatory authority over fireworks. They can ban them, period, every day of the year. Doesn't matter. They choose. That's it. Counties come in secondary to that, and their ability to regulate is tremendously limited, as you're aware. Tied to an index, and then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and so forth of July are off limits. You can't regulate them. Only the cities can. This is very similar to that in that, as Commissioner Buskerud mentioned, in Title IX of the code, which is the municipal code, there's a statute that is very broad and authorizes municipalities to regulate traffic generally. And that's why the city of Rapid City has a thick code just dealing with traffic regulation. In our code, what can the county do? Well, the county is limited to setting some speed limits, designating and setting some speed zones, traffic control devices that Superintendent Junge could tell you about. Very limited, some ability to regulate traffic in some minor fashion. But they do not have the same authority as the cities do to regulate traffic generally. Now, I thought it was kind of interesting because the topic came up of what about using nuisance law? And I was wondering, you know, when did both the city and the county have authority to declare nuisances and abate them? Interestingly enough, I found that cities were given the original authority to declare and abate nuisances in 1890. And that statute has been tweaked a little bit up through 1939, but 1939 was the last change made to municipal code ability to regulate and abate nuisances. So I was wondering, well, when did the county get their authority? Almost 100 years later. 99 years later, in 1989, the county got the same statute. So it took virtually 100 years for the legislature to decide that counties had a reason and a need to also declare nuisances and abate them. So then my next thought was, well, how does the city go about, how did Sioux Falls, Huron, Vermilion, Brookings, Mitchell, how did they go about doing this? Well, in 1917, they have a very specific statute passed that authorizes them to regulate traffic, and that's the one that they rely on today. That was last amended in 1982. So even though the cities have nuisance authority, counties have nuisance authority, obviously the legislature felt it necessary, and I can see why, to give additional authority to literally regulate the movement of vehicles on roads. And they did that for the city in 1917. They've never done that for the county. To this day, we don't have a similar statute. The abatement statute, as Commissioner Buskerud mentioned, one other thing I wanted to point out with it, to the extent the county has authority to pass an ordinance declaring and abating nuisances, it clearly states in that statute, which I think is 7833, that such an ordinance cannot apply inside city limits. So I know originally on there's a question, if the county passed a nuisance ordinance, can you apply that, whatever that ordinance says, can you apply it inside the city limits of a municipality? And the answer is no. Like it or not, at least it's clear. I like statutes that clearly tell you what you can and can't do. Nuisances, historically, and the case law I've read and the statutes and annotations, nuisances are really designed for land use, natural resource, planning or interference with those. In other words, you enjoying your land or air or soil or water or noise, the use and enjoyment of your property. The nuisance ordinance on the books specifically talks about impediments or interfering with the passage of a number of things, streams, waters, lakes, canals, and it throws in there streets and highways. I suspect that was, you're going back to the 1800s, we're talking about fencing, where it's an impediment to crossing. We're talking about maybe stacks of hay. I've read cases like that in the middle of the road. Those are nuisances to the public because the public has a right to use that road. Without going into a lot more detail, I guess I would advise you to not take action on this. I think the city of Rapid City clearly has the authority to pass an ordinance, just like these other cities have done. I 100% agree. It's not my position, I guess, to give my opinion on just personal perspective, but clearly all of us in this room have been irritated to heck with people on their cell phones, whether they're texting or not, let alone texting, which is requires a little bit more manual dexterity and distraction and so forth. We do have state statutes, careless driving, reckless driving, that obviously when the texting or the talking on the phone reaches the point where the car is weaving and running people off the road or presenting that kind of danger, there's a statute for that. The texting statutes, as you can read here, or ordinances, appear to me to try to capture the health or safety hazard prior to it becoming weaving all over the road. If you notice in the Sioux Falls ordinance, you can be cited for literally at a setting at a stop sign or an intersection, not moving at all, and texting. I suppose that, you could see a car movement, hit your gas quick, and a pedestrian is moving across the park. Or you've been behind people that the light turned green and they sat there and you wonder why, and then you finally notice they're playing with their phone. So I think these ordinances have probably tried to address those issues as well. That's kind of a long story on the topic, but I think it's pretty accurate. And I've also, out of curiosity, because everything's been happening in the eastern end of the state, I consulted with my counterpart for Minnehaha County who, without me saying so, agrees entirely with the position that I've come to. So I feel like I have some support in that regard, in a similar position with a big county and their legal office as well. So yeah, I would certainly support the city doing that. Something needs to happen, whether it be the city doing it or our state legislature passing a statute. I think I read or heard somewhere that or it was in the paper, I guess, today, I think, where there's 41 states, if I recall right, that have passed legislation. We're not one of them. Maybe we need to be.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you know, I for the most part, I guess, agree with Jay, except perhaps it is time to let a judge decide what some of these statutes mean, because they are somewhat gray. A nuisance consists in unlawfully doing an act or omitting to perform a duty which act annoys, injures, endangers the comfort, repose, health, or safety of others. I don't know. It seems to me that texting while driving fits that definition perfectly. And a lot of the case law says that you can, to protect your property. It doesn't say real property. It could be personal property, which my automobile is. And there's one case that declares that an obstruction of a public street is a public nuisance. Well, this texting while driving is maybe not necessarily obstruction of the public street, but we're talking, all of a sudden, we're talking about streets. And it wouldn't take too much to expand, for a judge who has an expansive view of the law, to expand that to include that. So I hope we vote to continue this and get at least a proposed amendment to the ordinance and see where it goes.
So,
We had a motion earlier that was not seconded. And
what was the motion?
Commissioner Davis.
To ask the state's attorney to research this to see if we can come up with an answer on how to make it.
So.
I'll second it. If you haven't declared
Too
it
late.
out of order.
Too late. We got to start over.
You make the original one, I'll second the second one.
I don't imagine I can make the same motion. So.
Why not? Yeah, you can. I can't. You can.
I'll make that motion to have the state's attorney's office continue with drawing up an amendment to the Pennington County Public Nuisance Ordinance and continue researching to see if there is some other method other than that to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, it might not exactly fit into the motion, but I think probably it does in a long sense. But I think most everybody here understands that Jay says the original law for the cities was made back in 1890 and amended in 1939, and the county didn't get that same ability for 100 years. Well, my reasoning is because most of my relatives came from the rural section and they wanted to make laws for everybody else, but they didn't want to have to live under them themselves. So when they were down there running the state legislature, they made all kinds of laws, letting the city do whatever they wanted to do about enforcing the law. But as long as they're outside of the municipality, leave us alone.
So Mr. Chair, may I make a comment? First of all, I agree with you. I'm just not sure that that's the way to go. And I wonder if there is not another kind of option that would make the statement, because I am very hesitant about putting a law on the books, and we're making a law here that is pretty hard to enforce. But I wonder if we do a resolution sending it to the state, if we can get the state county commissioners to promote this, if there are other options that we should pursue that could still get us to the end, which is influence the city and the state to put in, to create laws to make this illegal, texting while driving. So, Ron, I agree with you. I'm just not sure this is the way to go, and I'm going to vote against it. I'm sorry.
If I can comment on that.
Yes.
Yeah, we can go to the legislature, and I'll have as much luck there as I've had with fireworks, which is none. And you're not going to have much sympathy in the state association because all the big counties their cities have already done it. So the counties don't really care anymore. So there you go. That's the alternatives I know of, and neither one of them are very good, to be honest.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think, and Ron hits it right on the head, the state legislature is only going to do what I think benefits them. And last week when I was down in Pierre at that meeting on the ag acreage deal, we didn't get any benefit from the ag committee really. They all kind of sat there and but then it was all done. The chairman said, well, don't look for us to handle your problem, you handle it. And I said, well, how do you do that when you don't have the law behind it to do it? And so, but the next breath, the legislators that were there said, but you know, we went to this ag production deal for taxes on property on the ag world, and but now we're making too much money, so our taxes are going up too high, so we got to change this. So if it benefits them, they're going to change it, but if it doesn't benefit them, they're not going to do a thing about it.
Any further comments?
Public?
Yes, sir.
My name is George Farabee, at the risk of being ostracized by Ron Buskerud, I want to commend Jay for his research to date. I think I agreed with every word he said. Thank you, Jay.
Any other comments? The options of pursuing this are many, and we have a motion dealing with one of them. And I take it that the motion does not commit us to something that may or may not be impossible, but certainly exploration of possibilities is worthwhile. And that does not preclude anyone from pursuing other remedies, like legislative and so on. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3-1. Carried. Number 24, item number 24, 2013 Outstanding Service Award nominations.
Mr. Chair, with the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners annual meeting coming up every year, they have a service award, and this year I would like to put forth nominating Scott Guffey for an Outstanding Service Award. He definitely is innovative in his approach to handling the mountain pine beetle problem we have. He is very respected. People turn to him to talk about the mountain pine beetle, to get his advice, experience, and so I would like to nominate him because he is such a quality person in addition to handling the program very well.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 25, request to waive engineered road construction plans.
Good morning. Patrick Green. This is my agenda. I'd like to clarify that it is something that is something I would like to have done, but I'm not the only landowner being affected, and there are other landowners that are endorsing this proposed project. First step on this agenda is what's in front of you today. And I don't know if you have any questions regarding that immediately, but first step to my understanding is the waiving of the engineered report to then subsequently come back to ask request to realign this trail within the public right-of-way to the center line of the POA of 66 feet. I have a PowerPoint presentation here that helps clarify the parameters of these boundaries, property locations, slope of the land, proposed road grade, etc.
This is in Silver City?
It is, correct.
Dan, do you have anything you want to present?
Well, at this time, he's just requesting to waive the submittal of engineered road construction plans. The rest of the items, like the size of the road, how the road is built, that would all be discussed at the time he submits that request to the board. So right now, all he's asking is to waive the submittal of engineered road construction plans to build this road. It is a public right-of-way, it is 66 feet of public right-of-way. There is just a trail that goes through here right now. It is adjacent to Mr. Breen's property, very close. It's not located in the center of the public right-of-way. Instead, it's located at the very north end, if I'm correct,
north,
of the public right-of-way adjacent to Mr. Breen's property.
The process of getting here first was going to the head of the county highway department, and I've had several conversations with Heine. He has seen photographs that are in front of you that are used in this PowerPoint. He did not have any objections to moving this trail. Now, our position, when I say our position, I'm not the only landowner affected by it, but I'm the one most affected by it. So I'm the one who's willing to come and try and move this trail and incur all the expenses. What we're not wanting and not asking from the county is maintenance on this. We don't ask any cost in bearing the moving of this trail. Reasons, therefore, is we do not want to create a street there, but we do need a street. I mean, I need access, other landowners need access, but, you know, we don't want a street going through there and having a major thoroughfare, which when we get other entities involved, we would have to probably incur a larger type of structure or roadway. Goal being is to relocate the existing trail to the center. Now, my proposal is this trail has never been maintained. Photographs can show you that. It's never been gravelled. The county's never been involved. Any gravel on it's been put up by private owners, myself included, from Sherman out to my front door. I'm willing to, of course, improve that by making it a little wider, putting some base coat down, graveling it. If you go to one of the slides, which is slide number 15, you know, constructing the uphill side drainage ditch, you know, things that this does not have right now. So there would be an improvement on this trail, but it would be within the parameters of what we would like to see, which is a trail, not a major street meeting county specifications, and we're not asking it to be plowed during the winter, maintained with more gravel. No changes in terms of it being looks as an unmaintained street, just that we get to move this to the center line so that if you look through here, there's some PowerPoints proposing the location and showing the exact width of the 66-foot wide. But the reason, therefore, is if you look at, say, slide 4 and if you look at slide 5, that green line is, and slide 6, is my property line. My wife and I, we have a very difficult time parking, and we cannot use 1 foot of the trail without blocking the road. Now, other landowners on the other sides, being the south side, they're using 60 or 55 feet of it for parking, for boats, for other storage purposes and so forth. What we're just really trying to do is get it so that we can actually park in front of our front door as we get older. It's a full-time residence. It's not a cabin. This is my home. I've been up there for 18 years. And my other neighbors to the east are in the same situation. So I have built a retaining wall on my property so that we can get our cars off. But when, she comes home at night, wintertime particularly, it's always dark. We're always there's trepidation about going over that wall, and then giving enough room, and it's very difficult. So really, those are the motivations for our convenience as well as safety of that road and so forth. So that's kind of in a nutshell the motivation behind this, and I think through the PowerPoints give a pretty good accurate reflection of not only the terrain, width of the existing road, as well as the position that I'd like to have this, designated.
Mr. Chair, I think what we're looking for here, though, is to start with, is to waive the road requirements. So he can continue on with his plan to move this to the center. Am I right there, Dan?
Well, actually, even a little less than that, to waive the submittal of engineered road construction plans so he can get an application into our office.
Okay.
That's all that.
I'd make that motion.
And then, to my understanding, then I'm going to be back here with pretty much exactly what you've got here, asking to give me permission
So
to.
shall we save it?
Well, you could. It'd probably be a good idea, but I'm not going to change. I'm just going to be here again with all the appropriate paperwork and asking to allow us to do that, so.
Ron seconded.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion? We do have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 26.
Item 26 is the discussion of the fee that was charged to Independence Hall regarding a commercial structure for located on Highway 16. As you see in our ordinance, it requires a minimum of $100 permit or 0.1% of the construction costs. Well, his structure is $1.7 million. My math in the bottom is, wrong. So it is supposed to be 0.1, not 0.01, and it actually, the permit was 17,000, not 1,700. So that is a mistake in the memo. But that's what he was charged, was 17,000. Just for clarification too, only 60 of that dollars goes to planning and zoning. The rest goes as a drainage fee, and I believe is put in the general fund, which is to help County Highway Department for drainage concerns.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I brought this to Dan's attention from Mr. Perdue, who is doing that project down south of town on Highway 16. And he thought that $17,000 for a building permit was a little extravagant, since really we're not doing anything for it. We don't go down and inspect these buildings. We don't have any building rules and regulations in the county other than septic, and those will be taken care of on an additional permit that cost him more money. And so he was asking if there wasn't some way that we could do something about this, the building permit costs. And I guess what I got from that conversation was that he'd like to see some kind of a cap put on the building permit costs in Pennington County. And he'd also, I think, like a rebate, since he complained about it from about the first day that he was charged the $17,000 for a building permit. Just open for conversation.
So what's the percentage for this city? Do you know?
I'd have to look. Sorry, I don't know.
I mean, just wondering if we're out of line as far as,
We are, and he brought that up too, that he said it costs way less than that in the city to get a building permit, and all, but they do something for it, so. And I can't tell you exactly what that number is.
I'd kind of like to know that.
I can certainly research that for you.
Well,
And we don't have that many large building permits, but to put a cap on it, I don't see how that makes sense.
And are you suggesting that we postpone this to do some research?
I think so.
I would make that motion, and I would also like to see if they're planning, Pennington County zoning ordinance allows us to
Even do it?
do anything. I mean, it's an ordinance, and I know we can vary some of them, but I'm not sure about permit fees if we have any authority to say, oh, on second thought, we like you, so we're not gonna charge you as much, but you, we don't like so much, so we're gonna charge you everything.
Well, I don't,
Like that.
Mr. Chair, I don't think that's quite the case, Commissioner Buskerud. I think that we've been treating a lot of people unfairly with this 1% of the maximum. And so, $17,000 for a building permit when we're not doing anything. I mean, if we had a building inspection team that goes out and does the building inspection, things in that order. But I think what I'm suggesting and what he's suggesting is that we change the ordinance to allow for a less cost to a building permit for large projects.
I guess I
And so-
maybe don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that's where he's headed, so.
Well, in terms of the paperwork that I'm looking at, and maybe I'm missing something, but this cover letter, at one point it says $100 or 0.1 of the construction costs, and then you get down into the parentheses and it's 0.01.
That was my mistake. It was supposed to be
And
point
so which is it?
0.1. He was charged $17,000 for this building permit.
So then the paragraph where you calculate out 1,700 using 0.01, why is that there?
That was my mistake also. It's 0.1 and it was 17,000 is what he was charged for the building permit.
They just made a mistake when they were typing up the letter and
That's correct.
didn't catch it, so. But
I think it's worth the research.
Yeah, I do too. It may be a little high.
that's what the motion, isn't it?
Yep. I made a motion to continue this, to do some, Dan, can you look at-
Nancy seconded.
Yep.
Yeah, I just kind of
That's
like to
fine.
see what others are doing and see where we're at.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 1 hour late, we are ready to convene the Board of Adjustment.
Make a motion to go into the Board of Adjustment.
Moved and seconded to go into a Board of Adjustments. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. You're on.
Item A is a variance request, 1309 Rochford Community Club, Anna Burleson as the agent. This is to reduce the minimum lot size and setback requirements in a suburban residential district and to waive minimum off-street parking requirements. If County Board grants this, we'd recommend that one condition be added. It's located at 11676 Rochford Road, southwest of the intersection of Rochford Road and North Rochford Road in the community of Rochford, and currently 0.13 acres. It is a community hall, currently zoned suburban residential district. This is to bring the property into compliance in order for the addition to be constructed on the rear end of the property. Currently consists of a community hall, outhouse, which is currently being used as storage, a cistern, and a holding tank. It's used primarily in the summer for summer events, chili feed, and during the rally. And they want, it currently consists of 2 lots, and they want to combine them into 1 lot. Because it is suburban residential district, it would require a minimum lot size of 1 acre with water and sewer on the same lot, but it only is 0.12 acres, even with the 2 lots combined. The setback variances is to bring the existing structures into compliance to allow for an addition. The front would be from 25 to 3 feet along the east property line, 25 to 15 feet along the west property line, and along the side, 8 feet to 3 feet. And the south and west would allow for the addition too by reducing those setbacks. Variance is also to reduce off-street parking requirement. They are applying for a conditional use permit to allow for the community hall on the property. In order to get that CUP, they have to either provide for off-street parking on the property or within 200 feet of the lot on private property. Depending on how you define the use on the property, it would go from 10 parking spots to 48 parking spots for public events that they, like the chili feed or the breakfast they serve during the rally. They currently cannot meet that parking requirement on the property given the size, and so part of this variance is to waive that. They would need that in order to get the conditional use permit. County Highway has brought up that they'd like to have a 20-foot easement from the center of the road. It certainly appears that they can meet that 20-foot easement without taking any of the structure. As you can see in one of the drawings, it shows that they can dedicate that 20-foot easement. They cannot combine the two lots without providing these requirements, getting these variances, and they cannot proceed without getting that conditional use permit without waiving those parking requirements or providing for them somewhere else on private property. The structure, if you approve this, we'd recommend that the setback variance portion of this request only applies to the existing structures in proposed addition. All other structures must maintain the proper setback or obtain approval of a separate variance.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have some comments or questions, actually. So the purpose of the addition is something I'm not real clear about. Will they be doing larger events then and increasing their ability to do different kinds of events and more frequent events? I'm just kind of want that clarified.
I'm not exactly sure, but the
we gotta-
representative is here to be able to answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Lori Booth, president of the community club. And to answer your question, it would not change our events and the way we do it. What we're planning on doing is being able to expand our kitchen area and make it more accessible for ourselves as cooks. Right now, it's very crowded and very hard to function.
Okay.
And so we just need to be able to expand our kitchen area.
Okay, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
Because then I was going to make a comment that if you were expanding the size of your events or the types of events that you could have, then I was a little worried about that parking more so than.
No,
Okay.
it wouldn't change that, no.
Okay, that's what I needed from you. And Dan, just this one's for you. You talked about the highway department and the fire coordinator's comments, but what I have in my packet says no comments received. I'm curious where those comments are.
When the staff report was written, or that first part anyway, they had not submitted comments to us at that time. They came to us later after that portion was written.
Yeah, because that kind of is a little frustrating because I have nothing to go by on what they said. Just that it's kind of what you're telling me, but I don't know that. I have here on my packet, no comments received.
Yeah, staff did not receive written comments from several of the agencies, but we did talk to them in person, and that's where they stated that it was the 20-foot easement is what they would like.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve the variance VA 13-09 as proposed by the applicant with one
One condition.
condition. And you want to read that condition again, Dan?
Sure. That approval of the setback variance portion of this request only applies to the existing structures in proposed addition. All other structures must maintain the proper setback requirements or obtain approval of a separate variance.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B.
Item B is a variance request 13-10 for Larry Tuber, Schoolhouse LLC, Renner and Associates as the agent, to allow a guest house to exceed the maximum square footage requirement specified in Section 318 of our zoning ordinance. If you approve this variance request, we'd recommend that one condition be included. It's located at 9701 Clarkson Road, located at the southern end of Clarkson Road, 2 miles south of Sheridan Lake Road. Currently, it's part of a 44.82 acre parcel. It is also currently zoned suburban residential district to be rezoned to limited ag district. They're requesting the existence, or the existing residents be allowed to remain on at approximately 1,241 square feet in order to obtain a conditional use permit for the structure to be a guest house. The applicant is intending to combine this where the schoolhouse is with another lot where there is an existing house on the property. The lot reconfiguration will be handled by the city of Rapid City as it is within 3 miles of, within their plating jurisdiction. The guest house is located approximately 50 feet from the main residence. It was actually built in 1929, has been on the property for a long time. It does meet the requirements of most of our guest house ordinance with the exception of the maximum square footage, as that is just 241 feet above our 1,000 square feet. You want to see the
This building that they're asking for the variance for is already built? It's already there?
Yes, it is.
And the covered porch is already there?
Everything. The whole house has existed on the property since 1929, along with the main house. It's currently part of on a separate lot, however. They are reconfiguring the lot lines between these areas to, I understand, to sell this lot and build on another lot. But this house, this guest house will be on the same lot as the main house on the property. But in order to proceed, he needs this conditional use permit. Well, the house exceeds the square footage by 241 square feet, so he can't get a conditional use permit. Also, one of the issues is it's currently zoned suburban residential district. It also has to be rezoned to limited ag district in order to, or low density residential district in order to get the conditional use permit. That he intends to do and combine it with the other lots, and it will meet the minimum lot size requirement. So if you approve this, we'd recommend that you add one condition to it.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve variance VA 13-10 with one condition as presented by the planning department.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Planning and zoning consent calendar.
Make a motion to come out of the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Good motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out of the Board of Adjustment. Now we'll go to the consent agenda for planning and zoning.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think maybe I could save us a lot of time. Is there anybody that wants any discussion over those items?
Can you do that?
Anyone wish any of the consent agenda items removed?
After considerable review, no, Mr. Chairman.
I'd make a motion to approve item C through J, or through I, of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve items C through I on agenda item 27. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I want to know everything I need to know in 10 minutes or less for about tattoos.
This memo is in regards to a request that county board made during the budget hearings in regards to tattoo ordinance. It was originally adopted back in July 21st of 1998. I couldn't find any reason as to why this was adopted. Our nuisance officer, Rex Fackrell, currently does inspections on all these tattoo institutions throughout Pennington County. 11 of those are within Rapid City, 2 of those are in Hill City, none of them outside of incorporated limits. We currently get a fee of $275 per inspection. I did contact Susan Gannon of the South Dakota Department of Health. She indicated that if we repeal this ordinance, the Department of Health would conduct those inspections, charging then the local jurisdictions $150 for each of those inspections. She went on to state that most of the state of South Dakota is already inspected by the Department of Health, with the exception of the cities of Huron, Mobridge, Pierre, and Sioux Falls. No other county in the state does inspections or has adopted an ordinance amendment or ordinance to regulate tattoos. I also did research. Our ordinance currently doesn't regulate the tattoo industry any more than what state law already does. So I'd recommend that we repeal this ordinance and let the municipalities work with the state to regulate and inspect the tattoo industry in the area.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the city is not going to inspect the tattoo parlors in the county, correct? They're not.
Which we currently don't have any.
So we're going to give up $3,575 a year in revenue, which isn't a big deal. But it's going to cost the taxpayers $1,950 for 13 inspections of the state at $150 apiece.
Well, won't they do that? Won't they pass that cost on?
No, it says they'll conduct inspections and bill the local jurisdictions $150.
Which would be the municipalities.
Well, I'm a member of the municipality, and I don't want to pay $150 for my share of it. Why? So I don't understand. We're going to give up money and charge us money. The city is in the county, remember, Dolores?
I'm sorry?
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a terrible waste to have doing a duplication like that, but
The city could also develop their own ordinance, along with Hill City also develop their own
they
ordinance
could
and charge the
develop
fees.
a anti-texting while driving ordinance, but
Yeah.
they don't do that either.
Mr. Chair, I cannot believe that the state would inspect tattoo parlors across this state and charge the jurisdiction for that. I bet that's a misprint. I'd think you need a little time to research that and go back and talk to them and say, hey, wait a minute, don't you charge the individual that you're selling the license to? I mean, when they license a doctor or a veterinarian or a dentist or a real estate person, they don't charge the jurisdiction for those licenses, they charge the individual.
I would agree.
And so-
They gotta be charging those
Yeah.
licenses.
I'd make a motion that we postpone this till the next meeting and do a little research.
Second.
I'm good with that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I will give them a call and clarify that.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Items from the chair. Unless Holly remembers something I thought of, I have nothing. Committee reports?
Mr. Chair, yesterday I took a flyover for Mountain Pine Beetle. We flew over Pennington County. It's pretty grim in many places, but what was very apparent is that in the areas where we've been treating and trying to protect populated areas, you can see from the air that that is a real successful way of protecting people. We also went down through and looked from above as far as the roadways, and of course there are roadways that we still need to work on this fall that we're planning on, but I'll have photos of some of that, and as we begin the plan with our county mountain pine beetle, it'll be great to have those photos, and then I'll share them with you when I get them. It was just really eye-opening, and so I think you'll find it interesting when I get that chance, or get them developed, so.
Any other committee reports?
I have one. I'll be going to Pier Wednesday and Thursday for a Board of Directors meeting of the association, so if anybody has anything they want brought up, let me know.
Okay. Items from the public. Have any items from the public? If
Mr.
not,
Chair, I'd make a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
moved and seconded to convene executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.